Continuing with entrepreneurship, ladies and gentlemen, over in India, over 20% of women are MSME owners, which account for over 23% of the labour force and are considered the backbone of the economy. Our next guests are here to get us up to speed on women entrepreneurs in evolving markets, how to lead with purpose, as well as the main complexities that they face today. And I'm absolutely delighted to be welcoming them here today. Please give a very warm welcome to our first guest, Dr. Somdutta Singh, founder and CEO of Assiduus Global UAE. A very warm welcome. Let's give her a nice warm welcome, shall we? Thank you for coming. You may take this seat here.
Thank you, Laura.
Hi, lovely to meet you. Right, next up, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Mutonyi, founder of Jirani.co.ke, Kenya. A very warm welcome. Lovely to have you here as well. I hope you're well. Please do take a seat. And rounding out our panel today is Julie Barbier-Leblan, CEO and co-founder of Merit Incentives UAE. A very warm welcome. Yet another stellar lineup of speakers. We've done very well. The program team has done incredibly well booking all of our speakers. So thank you so much for joining us and taking the time out. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, for having us.
Right. I'm going to start off with some recent figures. Recent figures show that companies founded solely by women received less than 3% of all venture capital funding and investments. Part of this is because women entrepreneurs, by the way, are seen as more high risk as men. We are risky, apparently, when it comes to investments. So why are women seen as more risky, and what is the reality? I'd like to open that up to all of you.
Thank you, Laura. With your permission, I can maybe give my 30 seconds to a minute. So, of course, we're risky. Think about it. We're ready to bear a child 9 months in our womb, letting go of everything. So, we are usually the ones who take more risk. But why do they find us more risky? Is because they often forget, or rather, investors often forget that women are naturally nurturers. The power of the 2 X chromosomes, which men don't have. So I think they need more empathy than us. But coming to the facts, yes, less than 3% get funded. Large part of the reason is not that they don't need funding. A lot of them build companies that are self-funded. The MSMEs in India, and of course, I have my eminent co-panelists to talk about Africa and Europe, they are all very self-sustainable. But when an investor is looking at an opportunity, sometimes when they look at a single or a solo woman founder, in my case, when I was raising funding, the reason I heard a lot of no's is like, what if you get married? What if you have a child? Are you sure you can manage the emotions? So sometimes that comes in the way. But are we risky? Let me give you a figure. 89.6% of women-run enterprises are profitable. Now that deserves a round of applause, because that is the fact that even if less than 3% get funded, they build the most profitable businesses globally. So with that, I think I have my other co-panelists that can share their thoughts as well.
Because of course we're going to be, seen as a little bit risky if you're going to have a family. And the important thing is that, sometimes we need a lot of, flexibility. And so flexibility, I think, is a key sort of issue there as well. But please, go ahead on to your sort of thoughts on whether we're too risky and
Yeah, I do believe there is a perception that people do think that women are risky as founders and co-founders. But yeah, like you said, it's not necessarily true. We're able to actually carry a lot of burdens and take up a lot of responsibilities. We can raise children and also run businesses. There are a lot of us that are mothers and wives, and we take care of those responsibilities along with running a successful business. And even if you put aside business, people who are in careers, who are in employment, are able to juggle all of those responsibilities and grow their careers in employment. So it is a perception, but the truth is, actually, I was reading some statistics from the Boston Consulting Group, and the Boston Consulting Group that says that for every dollar that is invested in a woman-owned business, they get 78 cents on the dollar. while in comparison, for the men-founded business, they get 31 cents on the dollar. That's from the Boston Consulting Group.
Wow.
That's a big disparity, 78 cents on the dollar against 31 cents on the dollar from the Boston Consulting Group. So the facts show that women are quite capable of starting businesses that are successful.
There you go, exactly. That's why we've got you up here, yeah.
I don't need the mic. I'm already mic'd. So the interesting part, I think, and the question on the risk is any investor, being an angel investor myself as well, I always ask myself this kind of question. What kind of risk I'm taking on investing in a startup or in a company? And the interesting part is usually women entrepreneurs bootstrap. So they start self-funded with very limited means. Like the resources are extremely limited and they usually go to family and friends, and even most of the time they don't even want to bother family and friends. So they want to make their business sustainable very quickly. They don't brag about it most of the time, and they go through the life and usually choose entrepreneurship to be able to sustain with their family life. I started personally my career in Paris as a finance lawyer. And I had my first child as working for one of the top law firms, and I find it not sustainable. So the only way for me to continue to grow my family was to become an entrepreneur. I raised my first seed of investment pregnant of my third child. And I'm going through Series A with 3 kids under the age of 5 at that time. So we went through everything, and we keep growing the company and did 9x in 3 years. So we are not a risk. Actually, if you find a way to invest carefully your money, and you have women that actually went through this, you have less risk and less exposure than other entrepreneurs, because we don't take this lightly. We know that it engages our entire family, our entire ecosystem, and we also have the burden of representing an entire part of the population. If we fail, all other women entrepreneurs are impacted. So we have a much higher burden on our shoulders than anyone else. I've never seen a male entrepreneur saying, I'm representing the entire male entrepreneurs in the world, you know? But usually we are asked this kind of thing. What do you feel as a woman entrepreneur? What do I feel as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, exactly.
The whole idea, what she said, entrepreneurship is so much about attitude and less about gender. If we women include men in all the discussions we have, I think they will also feel a little more included than excluded. I think that will create a little more parity. That's for all the men, because they have families too. You can't say that a man can't take care of a child. It's just we need to just let them feel okay that, listen, if you're staying home and taking care of the family, you're equally good, right? It is not your burden to go and sustain the family. Let us do it for a change. We're good with money anyways.
Well, that's the thing. It's breaking out of tradition, which is never going to happen overnight, right? Yep. And everyone, there's gender bias. There's all of us have some conscious bias when it comes to gender bias. At the end of the day, all of us have it, no matter what. So it's knowing how to sort of change that narrative at the end of the day, isn't it? But speaking of risks, do you think that there are less women entrepreneurs because women in general take less risks? We don't like to take risks like men do.
That's a brilliant question, and it goes back. We had a panel in the morning that we were talking about diversity and inclusion. So let's go back to the roots, and I think Vimalji is here as well, and we were generally talking about upbringing. Laura, think about upbringing, whether it's a Western family, or European family, or an Indian family. Typically, you're brought up in a way where the boy automatically is expected to be stronger. Physically they are, because we're not here discussing, deliberating on physical equality at all. Biologically, we are different and will always be. The men can lift heavier weights, and we're not trying to compete with that. What it is about the weight of the family. So typically when you are taught that you need to go out there, you need to fight the battles, men have to do it. If you ask me, we talk about feminism, Laura, who's bearing their flag of masochism? And this discussion is important, because when you constantly put pressure on the other gender, they will automatically start putting the same pressure on you, and that's what is happening to us. If we change the narrative a little bit, the three of us sitting here, we're all very well accomplished. I'm a founder and a funder. How about we pick up a few investments and say, we will do it together. We lead the mantle. That is where the challenge comes in. But you're right, because we're taught to be, less risk takers because we know that the men will do it. We're a little risk averse because we are more comfortable. We're like the nurturers in the family versus the one that is going ahead and earning for the family. But because we were talking, Julie, about this example, and I share this again, those who didn't attend the panel. My fiancé is Danish. He's a lawyer. When we first met, I said, listen, the only way it's going to work is if you join my company. He said, great, I'll be your legal counsel. Whether it's the Scandinavian mindset or whatever you call it, he's a phenomenal cook. Phenomenal. And I'm horrible at kitchen. He's like, stay away. So we often discuss this, and he said this, listen, there's a reason the greatest chef of the world are men, and the best banker of the world is women. I'm letting you make the money while I'll make great food for you. So it takes one to make the change. I let him lead in the kitchen. So he lets me lead the business. So if we allow them to lead a little, like if we lead and we set that by example, I think the risk-taking tenacity will improve, and men will also be more okay to take the back seat and be the homemakers if need be.
At the end of the day, it's an individual thing as well. People are very, very different. You get sort of alpha males, and then, everyone's different in their own right as well. But it's just interesting to see how society sort of is changing and how quickly the landscape changes as well. I wanted to move over to Kenya for a moment and just take a look at the entrepreneurial climate over there. How is the climate for entrepreneurs, for women entrepreneurs, and what sort of business trends and models are you seeing emerge?
Yeah, in Kenya, it's very interesting because it's a space I'm playing in, because I run a startup that's called Jirani, and Jirani enables the small businesses. Particularly, I have a bias for women-owned businesses, especially those who sell from home. I don't necessarily have a shop, and if they do have a shop, it's a small pickup kind of shop. So the business models that I'm seeing are very interesting. I've seen, women traditionally in Africa, and now particularly focusing in Kenya, from many years back, they have formed groups. These groups are called chamas, and these chamas were initially they were for the purposes of just collecting money amongst themselves. Maybe it might be money they were given by their husbands or money that they've made from selling something, and they collect it, pull it together so that they have now a bigger pool of money and they can do bigger things together. So this togetherness has always been there amongst women, and the model that I'm seeing now is these women are monetizing the groups that they're forming. So I'm seeing a lot of WhatsApp groups being formed, Facebook groups, and what they do is they accumulate a lot of followers inside of those groups. I've seen groups that have like 35,000 members, 50,000 members. Some even have 100,000 members of women who've come together. And because now you have an audience of listeners and audience of potential buyers, they now charge for advertising on those groups. And the groups have they have a reputation of being a safer place because I think the group admins do vet who comes in. And so there's a lot of buying and selling that's happening in WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups. There's also another model I've seen on Instagram where people, again, with a large following on their Instagram page, what they do is they'll help you advertise what you are selling. So let's say you have a bed in your house. It's a decluttering kind of thing. You have a bed in your house. You want to get rid of it and earn some money, a little bit of money at least as you're getting rid of it. And you can give her the pictures. This lady who runs this Instagram page, there's several of them because she has a lot of following. And you give her pictures of what you're selling. She charges you a small amount, 760 or 750 shillings, which might be about, I want to say about $5. It's not much. It's not much money. But there's a lot of volume, so she earns a living that way. So the coming togetherness of the women, they naturally come together to support each other and help each other. And now I'm seeing a lot of women starting to monetize that.
That's great. Yeah. And there's actually a lot of that in Dubai. So a lot of expats, a lot of these expat mums, it's all the mums. They form these groups, they're able to monetize it. And it is actually a nice way. And that's the thing, when you do have a family and things, as I was mentioning, flexibility is a big thing, which is why I suppose that, women go towards entrepreneurship. As you mentioned, it wasn't sustainable for you. So you had to basically make it sustainable with, going into entrepreneurship. Very quickly, just different countries have varied sort of support systems for growth. Data shows that 11% of venture capital funding in 2021 in the UAE went to female founders. However, that's compared to the global average of 3%. So 11% here in the UAE. The ground here is quite fertile, and there's a lot of encouragement for sort of women entrepreneurs as well. What's your take on that as well when it comes to the UAE in particular?
So you can hear I'm a French national, but I've been in the UAE for 13 years. The possibility and the opportunities that I got in the UAE, I would have never been able to dream about it, even in Europe. Why? Because there is no gender bias specifically related to business. So as long as you are an expert, you can deliver, and people give you an opportunities and you can make it. So I'm not surprised about the numbers, specifically in the UAE. We are not talking about the entire region where actually it's much lower, even lower than the global average. But what is interesting is things are changing. The population in the region is very young. So there will be no choice actually to follow. And women won't allow this for their kids as well. They want everyone to have the same opportunity. I think what we are seeing at the moment, a lot of women founders are funded now, but we have a challenge going to the next series. A, B, C, D, it's more challenging because it's becoming more sophisticated and you have less exposure or less opportunities actually to reach that level. So it takes a lot of chance as well, maybe, or a lot of hard work to reach at that level, but I think the success will come from the fact that we can also help not only at pre-seed or seed, but also at a later stage. And I think for any woman founder in the world, if you want a country that helps you to go to the next phase, I think UAE is perfect. Because I find myself the balance where I can also have access to support services. I have actually the possibility to hire people to help me, which was not the case in Europe as much. So the flexibility and the capacity and the opportunity and the fact that people give you a chance anytime has been really key to the success.
I would like to add something to what, it's fantastic what Julie talked about. I'll just give you a personal anecdote. I moved to Dubai from New York in 2019 to just expand my business. The happiest I had felt was finally I didn't have to clean my own toilets because I can afford a full-time maid, right? So it's got the lifestyle of the West and it's got the culture of the East. Having said that, contrary to common belief, this is the most woman, non-gender fostering country ever. It outbeats US. It's absolutely non-racist. Everybody can come and succeed. And the equity that we talk about is actually available in this country, right? Even though my company was founded in the US and we're US headquartered, this region is the second largest for us. And Laura, not just that, when I raised my Series A, which was last year, we're raising 15 million, we got oversubscribed, all the lead investors were from this region. And I heard no's from US investors, Indian investors. But the moment they took the lead here, there was a FOMO. Everybody wanted to be a part of it, right? So this region doesn't care about FOMO. It cares about real business. It cares about value proposition. It looks at you as an equal. And the best businesses foster under respect. If you have respect for an individual as a great business personal, then everything else follows. So this region, I think, even the government goes all out. And Julie, you can pitch in. The government is like, try in India, you will not be able to meet, some of the biggest professionals because it's so hard to get through the ministers and all that. Here, they're accessible to you. They'll say, please come. Tell us what else can we do to support. So this region is a hotbed for entrepreneurship. It competes in all levels with the West, but it doesn't have the bias of the West or the East, and it is absolutely looking at entrepreneurship as a genderless aspect, looks at you only from potential.
Very well said. And everything that you said there is spot on, actually. Yeah, that deserves a round of applause.
Thank you.
Because it is a very nurturing environment here, and you can do whatever.
Yeah,
if you have a great idea, try it out, take the risk, fail if you have to a couple of times. But the framework here is really brilliant. Moving over to Kenya, what's the framework like over there to sort of nurture and encourage? And is there any sort of government structure around women entrepreneurship?
There is, yes. In Kenya, we're seeing a lot of venture capitalists coming in general just to support the founders that exist in Kenya. And I do see them playing particular focus on women because earlier I was with Antler. I have a relationship with Antler, one of the VCs in Kenya.
I've interviewed Magnus.
Oh,
Rhineland.
right.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've interviewed him, yeah.
So they've set up in Kenya. I think they've been there about 5 years or so in Kenya. And I see them trying to make sure that in every cohort that they bring in for their entrepreneur in residence program, that they have a 50% women versus 50% men. So there's a focus on that. I also see Google coming in with accelerator programs. They were giving out statistics saying that only 17% of the businesses that are funded in Africa are women owned, and they're trying to change that. They're making efforts. So there's a lot of efforts done from the private aspect, but also the country itself, the government is making efforts to facilitate it so that women can also start their businesses. So there is truly a focus on getting women up to the ones who are eager to start businesses. They're getting the opportunities to start.
That's really good news. Very quickly over to Julie, just before we move out over to our audience. Please get some really good audience questions going. If you have any questions, now is your time, just after this last question. Julie, how do we break stereotypes around whether women are capable of doing business then? What sort of how do we break these stereotypes?
I think we need to, we have a duty as well as women founder to give back and invest in other women entrepreneurs, that's for sure. I think it's also we need to accept that, again, I come back to failure, but it's okay to fail. And we need to let people to try and grow. And I think also maybe to have, I won't have a lot of friends if I say that in the audience, but to have a different type of people that invest. You shouldn't have only women at a level of being an analyst in a VC world, for example. You should have principal and partners, actually, that are also part of the decision process. And they come with a different type of qualities and different type of perception. I remember when I started my career as a finance lawyer that usually I was the only woman in the room and they didn't really understand my method. And this is what we face sometimes when we pitch to investors as well. They say, it's beautiful what you have achieved. We are very impressed, but we don't understand. And they don't understand because they put themselves in their own shoes and they don't try another method or another perception of... And I'm not saying that I have a great board investor. I have the first female partner in Saudi, a Saudi national actually, that invested in our company. So, but it takes a lot of effort and it took a long journey to be able to reach to that level. And I think we need to continue to foster success stories over and over and failure as well to be able to change the mindset.
Keep telling your stories, exactly.
Yes.
Right, moving on over to our audience here today. We have a gentleman in the front. If we could just get a microphone very quickly to him. Tell us who you are and your company and the question you'd like to ask.
Yeah, my name is Praveen. I'm the CEO of a company from Kerala. Our company name is Safe Software. So I just, we are talking about gender biased, so I'm just I think, the investors always invest on the business and the leadership of that person. So do you think that, even the men are biased to invest just because it is a woman there? I don't think so.
I don't think I even need a mic anymore. So, very honestly, I don't think the bias is a conscious bias. It's a subconscious bias. So imagine if I came and pitched to you, right? You're sitting in a great VC firm, you've come out of Harvard Business School, never built a business in your life, but you're now listening to me pitch. The first thing is, how's she doing it? Is it gonna work? But if I'm a man, I'm coming and pitching to you, and it's completely subconscious. You're like, let's go have a cigarette together, maybe go for a drink. Maybe I can't do that with you. And sometimes that progression of the relationship, because people invest in people, and the progression of a relationship is a bifactor of many attributes. So if I hang out, and this is where the bias ends, right? If you have these three women and then Laura on this panel, it just shows women build great successful business, are from amazing VC framework. I have a family office that invests in businesses. If I'm investing in you, I only care about the business. However, if I have to build a relationship with you, I have to find commonalities. That's where the challenge comes in. Because like Julie said, the people sitting on the other side are less than 10%. You'll see a woman in a partner role. Is why I want to give a shout out to Shafali, who's, by the way, the only chair in a Big Four ever, and we were on a panel together. That's rare. Imagine how sad is that she's the first and the only chairperson. I'm sure she's leading the mantle for many more to come. She's right there. But I'm just saying, that's a subconscious bias. That's what we are battling. We're saying, let it be genderless. If you're listening to us, forget it. It's a mask. Look at us based on potential. Don't go by whether I have family, whether I'm going to get married, whether I have 5 children. Nope, she can do it with her 3rd children. I can do it with 100 other things on my plate, taking care of my family. She's doing it being out of Kenya. Anybody can do it. So that's the idea.
Let me also add to that. I completely agree with what you've said. But I also want to add, the bias also starts from who is going to come and present to you to pitch on the business. In the sense that women, a lot of women lack the courage to actually even start something. They may have it in their mind, but they won't get the courage to actually develop their idea and also start pitching. So even the number of women who will present to you will be fewer.
Very good question there as well. Do you think it's a matter of maybe implementing, blind pitching? So no one knows who you are, where you're from, what you look like, whether you're a man or a woman. Here's the product, here's the pitch, maybe make it robotic, and then people can literally just, take a look at it as it comes.
I think if I can add, even on your question before, I think we won't see that in the coming years. Because the new generation is completely gender neutral, in a sense. That they don't ask even themselves the question of, can I do it, or is there a perception of being a woman or man? I think we come from a different generation. And we had still to go through this thing I was explaining in the panel this morning, and when I asked my dad to go in business school, he told me it's not for girls. And while he's educated and he's an entrepreneur, so it's crazy thinking, And even now, we are laughing about this anecdote. But what I'm saying, in the future, I don't think we'll have this kind of question. And coming back to your question about blind pitching, I think, like you said, we invest in people. Like, you can have the crappiest business idea, but at the end, if you look like you are onto something, the team is great, you have skills, maybe anyway, an idea is just the beginning, and then you keep pivoting. This is what makes you successful. Most of the time, you start and you pivot and grab opportunities, and at some point, it explodes and works. So,
anyway, right, one last question. We've got time for one last question, very, very quickly. We have a lady in the front. We've had a man's question. Let's have a woman's one now. Let's make it equal, shall we?
Thank you so much. My name is Purvi Roy. I'm founder and CEO of Arista Vault. My question to you is, yes. So what, according to you, women as a leader, what is that one quality that identify or defines women as a leader from men? What is that, and how do you think that it is good to embrace that quality?
That's an amazing question, by the way, and thank you so much for that, Purvi. Do you know the one thing that differentiates us is vulnerability. With vulnerability comes empathy. With empathy comes accountability. With accountability comes action. That's why we are so much more different than men, because if you, I think Veda VC was a part of my panel in the morning, and Vasant was talking about that the only people who adhere to timelines on sending their MIS to sending their quarterly updates is women. Once we decide we are going to do it, we are undeterred. And the word vulnerable is it's not a weak word. It means you are able to demonstrate your strengths and weaknesses with equal vigor. I had an opportunity to do a thesis with Dr. Amar Bose, and I don't know how many of you know, he's the founder of Bose Systems, right? He passed away in 2013. When I had gone down to work with him, he had asked me one thing, Julie. He said, make a list of things you think is important to be an entrepreneur. And Laura, I made a list of all my strengths. He tore it into pieces and he said, you're an idiot. I cried so much that night because he was my idol. He's the only Bengali I knew who ever built a business, because Bengalis don't really get into businesses. We are either doctors, scientists, engineers, and lawyers. It's not our forte. He had said, you forgot to write your weaknesses. A good entrepreneur hires someone who's better than them. That's how you build legacy. Vulnerability helps you to identify that, and that's why we are equal.
Very well said. Sadly, that is all we have time for. Very, very well said. We cannot thank you enough. Sadly, we have run out of time. We're going to have to wrap up. But thank you so much for your insights. There is really no shortage of ambition. So thank you so much for inspiring us today. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for our panel. Thank you.